That's an interesting
So
one, too.
he's better than I am.
In what sense? What do we mean by that, really?
So tell us a little bit about yourself and your history and what brought you to this event.
Well, there are professional and personal reasons that have brought me to this event. As a professional issue, there is probably no event that is richer in terms of information resources on a variety of topics generated from individuals who are the thought leaders in their fields, more than the Milken Institute Global Conference. If information is power, this is one of the principal generating stations on the planet. As a news person for almost 40 years, I thrive on information. I'm an information junkie. If anybody is giving me something that's new, or something that's innovative, or something that inspires or creates thought, that's where I want to be. And so if I were not at all involved, I would want to be here, because this is where the best and the brightest minds congregate. This particular conference is special for me. It's my third. And on this particular conference, I have been involved in the assembly and operation of 3 key panels, which I find to have been tremendously interesting and exciting to be involved in. With the first 2 were on the first day. One involved called Urban Champions, Reinvesting in America's Communities, and it involved a group of professional athletes, current and retired professional athletes, who have made the decision to make a positive impact on their inner city urban communities nationally, indeed around the world, by using their celebrity and the great amounts of money that they have made in their careers to reinvest in a number of ways, both in terms of a social agenda and in terms of a financial agenda. They've created a company called, or a private equity firm called Pro Player Holdings, that invests in a variety of industries, but has created a model for monetizing the celebrity of professional athletes into a fund that generates literally billions of dollars for reinvestment in urban America. The other agenda is entirely a social agenda that is based in the youth sports infrastructure that exists throughout the United States, so that kids who are attracted by the allure of professional sports and the success of professional athletes go into it with their eyes wide open and their minds prepared for what they are to confront, and prepared for the real world outside of sports, so that they don't neglect the academic and the career goals that are necessary in order to be able to function in the world that is outside of the system that the NBA, Major League Baseball, NFL, etc. represent, that trapped so many. And so it's a remarkable group of individuals who've come out of that environment to create whole new markets and whole new areas of business activity. The second panel that I was in part responsible for was one on public and private sector response to terrorism. Now, that's not a shift. I don't know what is, but I thrive on that kind of thing. It's part of my sickness. And to that I brought a dear friend of mine who was Secretary General of Interpol, the largest policing agency in the world, to talk about terrorism and how the public and private sector might respond. And on that panel were a number of very, very expert people. John Sullivan from the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Office Tactical Division, who was able to talk about the real on-the-ground strategic response of first responders. Brian Jenkins from the RAND Corporation, Peter Katona from UCLA, the Geffen School of Medicine, and Michael Introligator, also from UCLA, an economist and a senior fellow at the Milken Institute, to talk about those issues for an audience of public and private sector executives. Really inspiring. And then yesterday, I got to moderate a panel that I also helped to put together on that we call Paying the Piper, all about the music industry and the paradigm shift that has happened in that industry as a result of new digital technologies that have come and confused the old paradigm of how the record and even motion picture and television industries have existed for years, and it created something of a financial tailspin on one end, but a whole range of new possibilities for independent operators and creators and business people who are familiar with the new digital technologies, reinventing the whole economic structure of an industry in much the same way that the Industrial Revolution reinvented the manufacturing industries at the beginning of the 20th century. So those are some of the kinds of things that I personally have been involved with. But certainly this conference delves into a far broader array of issues and concerns that are current, that are forward-looking, that are mind-expanding. And that's what makes this such an incredible experience.
Just amazing. Excuse me one second. I'm going to ask him this to kind of keep it down a little bit. That was beautiful. So what can we do to help in those causes? What can we do?
You know, one of the things that, particularly as a journalist, who became a journalist because of the need to give people the important information about their lives and communities so that they could really be active participants in a unique experiment in government that we call the United States. I am compelled by the need for people to know. We cannot make informed decisions in this environment, which is now a global environment, without having good information. You cannot make decisions that accrue to the benefit of all people unless you understand the perspective and the challenges that confront all people. I think our media, to a large extent, have failed in their responsibility to people, certainly in the United States and by extension to the rest of the world, because the United States plays such an important role in the rest of the world, by not keeping people adequately informed. Someone told me, and it might have been at one of these conferences in years past, that a derelict on the streets of Stockholm is frequently better informed than the average college professor in the United States. And that's a sad commentary. We are so influenced by messages which have as their primary goal commercial response rather than intellectual response, that our objectives are confused, are shrouded in confusing objectives. And so as people in the media, we really have a great job to do in terms of reparations to the communities that we serve, because to a large extent we have forgotten the concept of service in media. And service in media simply boils down to providing the information that people need to make the important decisions about their lives and communities. And so as people in media, we need to begin to be more sensitive to those needs. There are needs in terms of the stewardship of the planet that people are woefully confused and misinformed about. Information relative to the political infrastructures that compete for our attention and loyalty around the world that we need to be consummately informed about so that we can make informed decisions. Technology is an amazing field, and we're learning more and more about God's creation, that it allows us to function far more efficiently and productively within it, that we need to be informed about. And so there's a great role for those of us who are committed to information and making information available to people. And so whatever you want to do, whatever you are inspired to do in this field, there's a great demand for, and certainly an inadequate supply of.
Talk to me about Martin Luther King.
I am blessed to have been raised in a generation that actually got to know Martin Luther King Jr., got to know the soul of a warrior who was based in his faith and whose objectives were clear, and as much as any individual I have come in contact with through history were crystalline and pure. One whose sense of sacrificial contribution to the future is almost unparalleled. As a child, I got to sing in the Southern Christian Leadership Conference choir. My parents were thoroughly involved in the civil rights movement, grew up in Chicago. My dad was a Tuskegee Airman during World War II. I got to go to Washington last year and collect his Congressional Gold Medal posthumously. He was the first black attorney ever hired by Chicago Title and Trust Company, and just the idea that he was an attorney distinguished him in our community as a national African American community, the first person in our family on his side to graduate from college, and made the contribution that he was uniquely prepared to make, but injected me and exposed me to that struggle to the point when Southern Christian Leadership Conference and then Operation Breadbasket began in Chicago. He was executive vice president of one of the strategic and original community-based organizations that made up Operation Breadbasket, and so I got to sing in Jesse Jackson's first choir. That gave me the opportunity to go on the road and actually sing in choirs at events that featured Martin Luther King, and actually shake his hand, and C.T. Vivian and Ralph David Abernathy and all of those people, and then to be directly, personally involved with many of the issues that undergirded what we now look at as the historic civil rights movement. To have been a part of that, to have been in Chicago on the year that I graduated from high school, and been in Dick Gregory's apartment on the Entertainment and Refreshments Committee during the Democratic National Convention, during that historic police riot in front of the Conrad Hilton Hotel where many of my high school classmates marched. I'll never forget a young woman named Ellen Irons, who was to have gone with me the next September to Pomona College in Claremont, California. We were part of the same 1968 graduating class, had her back broken on that night by Chicago police and was unable to go to college for a year, waiting for that healing process to take place. Martin Luther King inspired us all. Robert Kennedy inspired us all. John F. Kennedy inspired us all to look toward what we could do to make this country, indeed this world, a better place, to make the kind of sacrificial contributions that Martin Luther King and Bobby Kennedy made in their own lives, and transfer that commitment into our lives. And certainly the generation that grew up during that time of the Poor People's Campaign, of the Vietnam War, grew up with a special consciousness that to some degree has been lost until arguably now, which is interesting. There are a lot of people who come to me and say, I have not felt this level of connection with my place in the context of history since 1968, and this is 2008. And I didn't imagine in 1968 that it would take this long for that kind of traction of commitment among people for that which is good and positive and suggestive of future to take hold. Certainly Martin Luther King is an individual whose memory and whose reality needs to be revered. It's much deeper than I have a dream, much deeper than I have a dream. It is rooted in that sense of sacrificial commitment to truth and justice and freedom that motivated Martin Luther King. And it's difficult to find people today with that level of courage.
Talk to me about freedom.
There is nothing more precious in human existence than freedom. Those who don't have it will die for it. Those who have it will freely give what they have to impart that gift to others. And those who stand for it are automatically targets. And so along with freedom comes a tremendous load of responsibility, and with that load of responsibility, a commitment to courage. Because without courage, freedom cannot survive. Because there are so many forces which are diminished by the existence of freedom. Personal interests, vested individual, even corporate interests, frequently interdict the spread and the realization of freedom. It's what America stands for. It's what brought people to this place. It is what we who are truly Americans invest our souls in. And if we lose sight of that, we lose America and we lose a major piece of our own humanity. I believe God intended us to be free. He gave us free will. Who dares stand in front of that mandate? And so if God mandates freedom, we must, in order to fulfill our own divine mandate as human beings, as creations of His, we must defend freedom.
Wow. So what can we do as individuals to help keep that alive?
Well, each of us, I believe, has gifts, and it's difficult enough for us as people in this world to really even get in touch with those gifts. But I kind of believe that if we move toward those things to which we are naturally drawn, we find what those gifts are. And then the question becomes, what do I do with this? And if we position freedom as an objective toward which those gifts can be used, then that's what we need to do. If love itself, I am in awe of people like Quincy Jones. Quincy Jones was one of the panels that I was blessed to moderate at this conference. And Quincy is an incredible creator who doesn't mind telling you that melody comes from God. And this guy, come on. Who doesn't revere the work of Quincy Jones as an artist? And when Quincy tells you it's not me, melody comes from God, then it tells you he understands where his gift comes from. Quincy's motivations are loving motivations. His campaign right now, We Are the Future, is based in what he can do through his gift of music to bind people together in a spirit of love. He did that in Greece before the last Olympic Games, in an atmosphere where everyone was so concerned and in fear about terrorism and possible attack and political repercussions that it drove resources away from what he wanted to do, and he ended up committing his own resources to making it happen. It was a tremendous success and suggested a path that others might follow. I love that guy, not just because he's Quincy Jones and I'm in love with his music, I'm a huge fan, but because he puts it all on the line for that to which he is committed, and that is spreading love. If we each find an objective that high, if we cease to be afraid of the high concept, the highest concepts, to invest our gifts, then we will all be better off. The lower you aim, the lower your target, the lower you will rise. We cannot afford, as a race of people, I mean a human race of people, in this special place in the universe, to aim for anything but the highest goals. We've done that for way too long. And I kind of believe that if we don't do it now, who will do it and when? Will those who come after us have the opportunity to do it? We have to leave that legacy.
This is awesome. About as good as it gets. Okay. Yeah. Where do we go from here? How about green? Just another moment with him. This is too good. How about green? What do we do?
Well, I mean that falls in the whole category of stewardship of our planet. We were put here to enjoy the fruits of it, but also to take care of it, or else there won't be any harvest. Hello, our very survival depends upon that. If people as humanists, we talk about how awesome this human race is, and how we're just the greatest. All that. Okay, if you're all that and a bag of chips, then what about this mess you've created? Now, there is a huge debate over how responsible human activity is for climate change. We can debate that ad infinitum. And the debate is in some sense a tremendous waste of time. The issue is, are we using the resources with which we have been given at their highest and best level? Are we preserving our future by the way we use the resources with which we have been blessed? The things that we have learned, and the body of human knowledge, by the way, I believe doubles now every 72 hours. 10 years ago, it was every 28 days. Are we using that increasing body of human knowledge to the end of preserving for posterity this gift, this earth, indeed this universe, over which we have been gifted with some modicum of responsibility? Or are we just taking our wrappers and throwing them on the ground? Are we just using that which is available to us and not preserving that which it creates? There's no future in that. It's just not smart. Okay? And there are lessons in all of this. There are expendable, non-replaceable resources, and we have to be conscious of the management of that. You have to be conscious of non-replaceable resources in the management of your own household budget. You talk about green, okay, let's talk about money. People don't understand that resource well enough to manage it well, and we need to be in touch with that just as much as we need to be in touch with the resources that are natural, because they have to be managed with just the same kind of alacrity. You see what I'm saying? So, yeah, green is an issue. And it is coming home to every single man, woman, and child on this planet. And those of us who are conscious enough of the consequences and the forces at work need to put that knowledge to work, spread that knowledge, so that we as a group of 6.5 billion people can guarantee our continued survival and really invigorate the life of this orb that is such a gift. Because chances are there aren't a whole bunch of places in the universe that are like this. And assuming we could ever get to one of those places, we'd be confronted with the same issues. So, hello, that's some of the coffee we need to wake up and smell. At the same time, we need to wake up and smell another variety of coffee. And that is our own relationships with one another. We can have the greenest planet in the universe, but if we don't learn how to accept and love and cherish the resources that we are as peoples of this planet, it's all a waste of time. It's all a waste of time. We got to figure out the peace equation. We've got to figure out the relationship equation, because one of the things that our technology is teaching us is that this isn't a very big place. Everything that happens in one place affects everybody in every other place. We can now talk to one another. In a moment, we'll be able to be face to face with one another and be in one another's lives and families as intimately as I am sitting here with you right now. And that matters. Because if you and I can't get along, we can't solve any problem. If we can solve every problem. I kind of believe that.
That's really good. That's excellent.
You don't believe this stuff.
Okay.
Okay.
Oh my God.